Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Von Duprin pool special exit device. The Von Duprin pool application, pool as used in the sentence during spring break, we spend every day swimming in the hotel's swimming pool. The pool device is an item that we get a handful of calls every year on, and people are looking to use this sort of device to solve a particular problem that they have. And this video is to give you an overview of everything that we know about the device and where we know that it has been used in the past. And let's start off by taking a look at it. So first of all, here's the box, and it weighs about 20 pounds. A lot of components inside of here. And nowhere on that label are you going to see that it says pool, but all of that information certainly conspires to tell us what is being engineered here. Engineered in the sense of this is what Von Duprin calls a special, meaning it doesn't occur anywhere in the price book. It doesn't occur anywhere in printed literature. And it's something that, should you directly or indirectly contact the manufacturer, they would call it a special. They would basically say, give me an operational description of what you're doing, and they would special engineer possibly a solution for it. And this pool started out that way, where there was a substantial client that was looking to solve a problem that they had, or I should say, apply hardware in a scenario would be probably a better way to say it. Apply hardware in a given scenario. And the summary of that scenario is that you have a theme park, and that theme park has probably several pools on grounds, and the entire thought process, I guess, of this device application was, I want a device mounted at a standard height that would be considered code compliant. Let's say roughly 40 inches from the floor to the center of the device, just for using even numbers. However, I want to be able to exit, because it's a pool enclosure, and I don't possess a working knowledge of code, because I don't attempt to memorize the sheer volume of code. I want to be able to exit because of the code and my occupancy, how many people I'm going to have at the pool. But on the outside, I need to be able to prevent just anyone from activating the device and entering. From what I understand, a pool enclosure must have a 4-foot tall gate structure, a separation. Well, you can't put your exit device at 4 foot tall, because that would be too high for exit code. Or at least where the top of the device would reside would probably eclipse what would happen. So I need to have the push side down at a code compliant height. But then the opposite side, I need to get that up and over beyond where, let's just say, a toddler would be able to reach up and enter. So, and this is my opinion, my summarization only, not from, this is my opinion. If the toddler, if the child is what we're looking to protect as best as possible, you sure want to keep them from going into the pool unattended. The logic is probably, if you're already in the pool, you're being supervised, and signage says no unattended children under the age of 18 or whatever it might say. So I can get out at a good height. I'm moving my entry mechanism up over the hands of the reach of a toddler, and that is the other part of the pool device, where on the opposite side there is indeed an access trim that is connected by a rod that will allow me to retract the latch in the head case of the exit device. Okay? Now, a short review of what I understand is the manufacturer's perspective on the unit is, again, it's a special. It's nothing that's published or printed. Going even further, it's nothing that's warranted. It doesn't carry a factory warranty. Furthermore, there is no UL rating on it. Furthermore, there is no rating of handicap compliance on it. None of the above is provided by the manufacturer. It's not weatherproof. It's not waterproof. It's not impervious to absorbing heat from the exterior, from the sun. So what I'm trying to say is you might come up to that device to find that it's quite hot when you touch it, and that lever trim as well. And the way that we could understand why that would be the case is, as the manufacturer states, Von Duprin has spent a century trying to safely get people out of buildings where the exit device hardware is on the interior of a building. They have not spent, fortune trying to figure out how to move people in an exterior sense once they're already outside. They get you out of the building is their point on that. So be mindful of they'll be able to do sprayed finishes on this hardware. They can do stainless steel, and indeed the one that I have is US 32D. Obviously polished would be within the realm since it's already that base material. The factory being able to supply it in a powder-coated finish will probably reduce the surface temperature because I guess there would be a little bit of insulation between the base material and your hand. But be mindful, there's no accommodation that the manufacturer makes in terms of what that item would be like. If it's on the outside, it's going to get rained on. It might get snowed on. Who knows? It's not warranted for any of that. You can't do anything electrified in it. You can't have any sort of monitoring that would go on the inside of an exit device where you might be able to report somewhere if you had a REX or a request to exit switch inside of an exit device that communicates back through a micro switch that says door closed, door open, door closed. Well, pardon me. That's not telling you that. It's telling you if that request to exit has been depressed. Excuse me. I very much misspoke earlier. That's only telling you if the exit device has been depressed. Doesn't tell you if the latch has been triggered. Doesn't tell you the position of the door. So the point is no electrified options would be available. And there are several and many from Von Duprin. They do not provide a warranty, as I said earlier. They do not provide templates. They do not provide installation instructions. None of that is provided whatsoever. And from what I understand, that's only a result of the fact that the factory has not, the manufacturer has not said, okay, let's engineer this device. Let's have it thoroughly tested for compliance with application, code, the ability for it to not fail. They've not invested any of that fortune into doing that. And it's probably because there's not the demand for it. So be mindful you leave the reservation when you ask for a pool device. Very much so in this regard. And again, it's because the factory has said, we feel we're the best at what we do, and we've been doing it for a century, and we feel that we know more about it than anyone else, and we haven't given thought to using our product outside of what we've engineered it for, to the best of our ability. I think of mixing two different drinks together, a stimulant and then an alcohol. One's not, they didn't think they were going to use certain stimulating energy drinks mixed with alcohol, I would suppose, at some point. So it was never engineered to go together, but it's still done. The point of the matter is, you do, I think, leave the reservation when you look at this sort of device. Now, it does give you the ability to exit, and it gives you the ability to move that access point up and out of the way. And in fact, that access point is at 54 inch. is where the lever is mounted. So below this video is some extended description information. And we're going to go through these bullet points. They will only do it in a 98 version, not the 99. Same device. The only difference is the 98 has a smooth feature to the device. And this is the business end of the pool device. This is a 32D device, US 32D, stainless steel. The 98 is the fact that the cover push pad, we're dealing with a smooth surface. I don't know why they don't do it in the 98 grooved surface. I don't know why. There's obviously a reason, but I don't know why. It is a rim exit device, and I don't know why it couldn't be a mortise exit device. Anyway, it's a rim exit device that will have a latch. It will, of course, come with a strike. You have to select the strike type. A 299 is a common strike. A 1609 is a common strike. Those are detailed in the link called strike information. So you do have to determine which you're going to use. Again, that lever is mounted at 54 inch off the finished floor. And by turning the lever, pushes the rod. There is now getting into describing how the two items communicate. There's literally a surface-mounted rod on the interior of the gate connecting the head case up to the back of the lever trim that when you rotate that lever, it will retract the latch in to let you out. Has a specialized head case with a specialized rod connecting assembly that they have basically kit-bashed existing pieces and engineered a way to basically marry them together to accomplish this end result. It comes with an exterior control that would be a lever trim. They do indicate that the device has weep holes, and I can look over my shoulder and absolutely see that that is indeed the case. This is a good reason why this is a good reason that I can use to illustrate why these devices are absolutely handed. You have to know if it's left-hand reverse or right-hand reverse. Not only is all of the structure of everything built based on what end is up and what end is not up, but also the weep holes, these tiny little holes that are drilled. You can see 4 or 5 of them. 1, 2, these tiny little black dots that you see right here at the tip of my finger. A weep hole is used to allow any water that's gotten inside the case to have a path to trickle out. This is a left-hand reverse. The weep holes were down here, the hinges are here, and this door swings out this way. From your perspective, you're on the inside, but from my perspective, I'm on the outside, swinging towards me. You might say that that's a right-hand out, but it's really a left-hand reverse. So that would be a good way to illustrate why they're handed, because it does come with weep holes, or drainage holes they're called. Very much handed. The finish is indicated. We do have to know the thickness of the door or gate that you're installing it onto. That's because I'm not a manufacturer of gates, but I could imagine that gate thickness would vary, given what's the standard thicknesses of steel. 2 inch, 1.5 inches. I would say that all that would be very common. 1.75 inches, probably not. So that has to be specified. And then you do have to select the strike that you're going to use. Now to move on through the remainder of the information that's detailed here, there is a link to a handing chart. And then there are several photographs that are listed along with a video. And that's where I want to introduce there are 2 pieces of source material for this video. There is the manufacturer's data that I have provided. There is then also the blog of Lori Green, who is responsible for Allegion's code and resources. Her title is Manager Codes and Resources with Allegion. who, of course, is Von Duprin, who owns Von Duprin. Her blog, and like so many of us in the industry, when you're in the industry or if you're in construction, you walk around and you look at things now because you notice stuff. Well, she was at an application. She was at a function, according to the link, and all credit to Lori, a link to her blog, to her website, which I very much encourage you to familiarize yourself with. And not to get sidetracked, but the people who work in the code universe of our industry are really the gatekeepers of safety, the interpreters of safety, the interpreters of what is permissible, but more importantly, I find what's not permissible. You cannot do that. And having spent a small amount of time being exposed to such individuals, whether it be, well, it's obviously industry related, but you quickly learn the irreplaceable role that these folks play, because while all the codes are published, and I think it's ultimately accessible to everybody, it's understanding it and applying that knowledge to creating a safe environment for us, the regular user. You know, I don't want to have to think about my toddler when I turn my head for a second. 3 seconds, you look over your shoulder, the toddler's gone. We want to take for granted the safety that code gives us. We want to keep the toddler from getting into the pool enclosure. You got a gate right there. Did the child go in? Now there's 200 people in there. Where's your kid? You can't see him. So we take for granted this material. And by extension, I think we take for granted, even in much the very same way, those folks who spend their career not only understanding it to the best of their ability, but then allowing the layman to understand it. But I'm assuming in Lori's role, helping evolve it in the world that we live in, with classroom security being something that is evolving at light speeds. The role of those folks that are helping just find ways to keep us safe is an irreplaceable function. So the link to her blog is there, and I'll summarize it quickly in terms of the second component of my understanding of this pool hardware. According to a function that she was at, it was brought to her attention, this exit device configuration that was installed indeed on a gate enclosure of a pool. According to the International Building Code, the IBC states that the pool enclosure must be 4 foot high, with gates that are self-closing and self-latching. Gates must swing away from the pool and release the mechanism on the outside, and the release mechanism on the exterior must be at least 54 inches from the bottom of the door or gate to prevent a young child from entering. So I had said it incorrectly earlier. It's not above the finished floor. From the bottom of the door or gate. A big difference there. How many gates run all the way to the floor? Lots that don't, meaning you could have some margin there. Obviously not large enough for a child to crawl through, but you could have some margin there. Specifically intended to prevent a young child from entering. There is an exception to the hardware mounting height requirements, typically a maximum of 48 inch, but to allow the 54-inch location on pool gates. Okay. Moving on through the rest of her blog, her article, there were 2 pool enclosures. All of the gates had panic hardware with panic device mounted at the standard height on the inside, approximately 40 inch, as Lori states. If a rim panic device was used, the lever trim would be mounted at the same height or thereabouts to the exit device, which would be a violation of the requirement of the 54-inch minimum for the trim height. So therefore, if a panic was used, you would not be compatible with that code. You'd be in violation of it. The gates at this pool were a special Von Duprin variant. Rim exit device on the inside with a latching function, a top rod and a lever connecting it all together, and then she goes on to say what some basic components were used. And if you get into Von Duprin part numbers, you could probably look at those and know a little bit more about it. And then she has a variety of photographs that detail this installation. This application shows a 1609 strike, and it's surface mounted, meaning it is a 1609 strike. The connecting rod we see there. And then her video. And then she goes on to state that the code and the exception: access doors or gates and barrier walls and fences protecting pools, spas, and hot tubs shall be permitted to have operable parts in the release of the latch on self-latching devices at 54 inches, a maximum above the finished floor or ground, provided the self-latching device are not also self-locking devices operated by means of a key electronic opener or integral combination lock. So you don't need special knowledge to enter, I guess is what that's saying. Lori goes on to say that the exception is not clear, which has led to a variety of interpretations and in conflict with the requirement of no special knowledge and the height. So until she concludes that any sort of clarification is determined in code, and then manufacturers respond, and code officials and code professionals like Lori respond to help define that, there will be some inconsistent applications of the hardware. Those two sources, the manufacturer and Lori Green, is where I gain my understanding of the application of the material. And now let's move into a general visual review of what this thing actually is when you open the box. So let's go into a general review of the physical hardware that's included. So obviously we're going to talk about an exit device. Okay. Currently we have this available to be ordered in different finishes. This is the US 32D stainless steel. We also have it listed in polished stainless. So that shouldn't be a problem getting it in polished stainless. Also listed as US 28, clear anodized over aluminum. A 313 finish, which would be an SP 313, which would be a powder-coated dark bronze. And then a 315 finish, which would be a powder-coated black. I don't know the limitation. This is a special, meaning it's not a line on the menu, so to speak. So what can and cannot be done is certainly complete. The totality of what's possible is unknown, but those are the finishes that we feel that should be able to be ordered without trouble. So you're going to get this 9857 head case. And so you've got basically a 9998 series device, in this case a 98. We're going to pull the head case off so we can look underneath the hood, so to speak, of what this head case is looking like. Have to kind of depress the pad a little bit to get the head cover off. So we have, and that 9857 is obviously a multi-point device. Why do I know that? We've got a latch, and then we've got this ability to retract rods. Okay? And really, when you study this device, it's quite brilliant. You know, exposing the true asset of the Von Duprin Technical Support Department is their ability to solve problems. So when I look at all of these parts that make up this pool device, they just, forgive the term Von Duprin, but it's kit bashing. You took the piece from here, and you took the piece from here, and you took the piece from here, and like the total of all of the pieces, the sum of them are greater than their individual parts, it seems. So we've got a multi-point device. Okay. It's got extra functionality. I suppose if we put a tailpiece in there, we could retract all of that. You're certainly not doing that in this case. So we've got that 9957 head, right? I'm going to put that cover back on. Well, maybe I didn't need to pull that head case off or that latch back. Snap its little plug back in place so it kind of stays where it needs to stay. Moving up the device from that point, actually let's hang on to this. You're going to have a rod, and this rod is going to come out of some device. In this case, it's coming out of a 9827 surface vertical rod exit device rod. The portion down here, I'm going to stick that out just a little bit. That's going to fit right onto, let's go back to where we were actually. I have a ceiling condition above me where I can't really get that rod up too much higher. But now you see what's happening. I'm retracting the rod, I'm retracting the latch, and I'm pulling this rod down at the same time. Okay? Now let's put this all back. Moving up the device, we're controlling this in the head case. Let's jump up a little bit to our trim. Okay, lever trim. When I rotate that lever, you can certainly see why this is handed. When I rotate that lever, it moves this plate. This trim has the ability to operate as a night latch or a classroom. The cam that's in, just to touch on that briefly, the cam that's in it now, I can lock the exterior trim via key control or maybe thumb turn control, or I can leave it unlocked all the time. This client wants the ability to leave it in classroom function, locked all the time, always rigid, key control, set it to passage all the time. So it's either a storeroom or a passage that makes a classroom lock. This unit also comes with the night latch cam. Well, they don't call it cam, they call it a cylinder plate perhaps. We'll get the proper definition for that. And I won't go too far into it, but this plate that I'm showing right here, the tip of my finger, if we were to take the screwdriver and remove the night latch, or what they call the TL cam, remove the screwdriver, control with your finger, everything else, there's a spring there, you don't want anything to come off, remove that, put the new cylinder plate is what it's called. Okay? It's going to mount inside of there. And it looks just like this with these two fingers sticking up. Well, that's not how it gets installed on the back of the trim. Those two fingers are actually canted or tipped this way or that way, depending on the device. So what happens is when you tip it this way, in your mind's eye, imagine the cam of the mortise cylinder. It can rotate and enter in this way to kick it, but it can't go so far as to exit that. So the only way back is to tip it back forward and bring the cam back to vertical and pull the key out. What I'm trying to say is the night latch is controlled by the fact that you cannot remove the key until you reset it into the locked position. Tipping that way, the tailpiece can enter and activate, but it cannot exit that way and setting in that position. The only way to get the key out is to tip it back, relocking it. So unlocking it, relocking it is how that works. That screw, there's a washer, this one plate comes off, you replace it with the other plate, and then you'll observe that behavior. And a standard cam is what you'd use on that cylinder, a standard cam. So that's how you control the movement of this piece of hardware here. I'm not exactly sure what they call that, but it doesn't really matter. It's a unique item that's on here. Moving up or down device at this point, you will install, we're going to have to take this material out of the packaging. You will install per the template for this trim. This will go through the door. This rounded side will be pointed towards the bottom of the door. Every time, and it's going to rest just like this. Every time I rotate that lever, okay, hopefully you'll kind of get the point. When I rotate that lever, it forces this gizmo, this lifting bracket perhaps, to go down. It forces this to physically move further down. So, this is on the door. This is through the door from the push side. My thickness is here. Now you know why you have to know the thickness of the gate as well. It will go through this dress plate. You'll get it in there. It'll go through the dress plate. This is secured to the face of the door. These two set screws now are put up over like this. And you tighten these two set screws. Now, it's connected to the device at the bottom. When you depress it, that thing's going to drop down. That means that this is physically going to drop. Also known as, when you rotate the lever, this is physically going to drop, allowing you to retract the latch. That's how this works. You will have to modify the top of this standard rod, because again, they've kit bashed. You're going to have to cut that and come up with some way to treat it. I do not see any hardware in the package to do so. We've controlled this rod at the bottom in the head case, but we've not really controlled it at the top. We've got it secured to this, which can kind of float, can it? It will. You could probably take that and pull it on it a little bit, but they include a rod guide. So the black plastic goes over the rod, and then you've got the rod guide itself that will secure this to the top of the door, keeping it on the top of the door. So now, you know, we're looking at this scenario. We're secured up here. We're secured down here. Now this rod can just move on us. Okay. The length of this, of course, is compatible with that 54-inch mounting height that we need. Looking at the rest of my packaging, I don't see anything else to explain except that in that cylinder plate you will get the coin box nut, or this mortise cylinder nut. And this washer to put your cylinder through and tighten it down to keep it captive in here. You might need a cylinder collar with cylinders not included. I probably should have said that. You're going to get your end cap. This is typical 98, 99 series end cap material for the exit device down here. Okay, you need to clean that off. Finish that off. You're not going to use this at all. Proving the point, this is kit bashed. They took some from here, took some from here, took some from here. You will not use this guide cover whatsoever. Because this is kit bashed, they had multiple things going on. It's unlikely, but possible, that you will get a device that has more strikes than you need. Don't count on it, but it's possible that you will. And when I say kit bashed, I mean coming from a hobbyist world, like model train. The word kit bashed pertains to, I'm going to build a custom structure, and rather than not having a custom structure, I'll take the roof line from this house, and I'll take the porch from this other kit, and I'll take the structure of the four sides from this kit, and I'm going to bash all of that together to build me something custom. That's where I'm getting that term from. It just means when you pull pieces from other areas to create something. Because this is kit bashed material, you probably will be left over with a couple of pieces, because they're basically saying, give me the component XYZ from this item, give me component, M, N, and O from this component, give me this component from over here. We put it all together, you could make all that work. You can make all that work. So, in summary, that covers the physical components of everything, not getting into the where to drill the holes and the whatnots, because if the manufacturer doesn't provide installation instructions, I would be hesitant to do that as well. But you're going to start with some basic dimensions. You're going to this is going to be mounted at a specific height. It's going to be mounted at a specific backset. That trim is going to have to go up to a specific height. You're going to reality check everything. You're going to want to make sure that where that rod goes up to and where it connects to the back of here, you're achieving a height that you want it to be at. So really, when you know one dimension, well, I should say if you have one dimension fixed and you know where you need to be on the other dimension, the variable, where the rod is going to ultimately end up becomes that piece that you cut. And really the only trimming that you should do should be on this rod. I would imagine that you would trim the rod. The rod length, and this device, by the way, 3-foot and 4-foot devices. This is a 3-foot device, indeed. The overall rod height on this is 35 inch. So 35 inch, if this is going to be at 40, you'd be able to get that trim, pushing 6 foot off the ground if you wanted, because of the length of the rod. So expect to have to cut this down noticeably, maybe in half, something like that. The strikes. This one, and again, do not plan on them coming with extra parts, but you've got the 1609 strike. The standard strike is the 299, where you've got a single door, and the strike mounts on the jamb, and the exit device just basically rides up to the back side of this and stays there until you depress and you exit. Okay, that's the jamb mounted. But if you didn't have a jamb to install this to, meaning the inside face of your gate was flush with the inside jamb post, you would need a surface mounted strike. Okay, which would be the 1609. So select the strike type that you need, and there are others that you can do as well technically, but the dimensional properties are there. If you have a normal installation, what's normal? I would really expect that you'd need a 1609 strike, would be my first guess on that. Surface strike with a rim-mounted exit device, and both of those conditions are flush. But other than that, maybe a 299. You could have something like that. All right, in conclusion, I hope that I have expressed my gratitude to not only Von Duprin's technical support department, but Lori Green as well. I feel very, very strongly about how exceptional Von Duprin's technical support department operates. You would say that they were overqualified, except you need to be that qualified to work at the level that they do in terms of understanding it. Then, of course, the interpretation of code, not the interpretation, but the proper processing of code, the evolution of code, and how to help keep us all safe is where Lori comes in. You just have to think about all of the building disasters that have occurred. Imagine how it would be if we didn't have building code. This industry is powered by bad news. The important part is there are people like Lori that rise to the challenge and say, how can we make this never happen again? So my appreciation to her. And then if you have any questions on these aspects, feel free to reach out. I don't make a living installing the material, but I've been selling it, and I have installed it for decades, a couple of them plus. and would like to talk about your applications and how this piece of hardware may, or even more so, how Von Duprin may help solve problems that you have, and be a small little piece of the greater web of what this industry entails. There's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Von Duprin products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Any questions on the Von Duprin pool, variant, special, or any other Von Duprin product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.